The rain hammered the roof of the old Victorian house in suburban Chicago like it was trying to drown out the screams inside. Ethan Harper, all of 14 years old and trembling in his soaked sneakers, clutched the crumpled note in his fist, the one he'd found tucked under his mattress, scrawled in his mother's elegant cursive. "We know what you are. Pack your things. You're leaving tonight." His father's voice boomed from the hallway, a thunderclap of rage. "You're no son of mine. You filthy little. Get out before I drag you." And just like that, the door slammed behind him, the porch light flickering off as if erasing him from existence, leaving Ethan alone on the stoop with nothing but a backpack and the relentless downpour blurring his tears into the storm. That night in 2008 marked the fracture that would echo through Ethan's life like a fault line in the earth, unseen until it split everything wide open. He was just a kid, awkward and lanky with a mop of chestnut hair that always fell into his hazel eyes, the kind of boy who dreamed of Broadway lights and quiet library corners where no one judged the stories he devoured. But in the heartland of Illinois, where cornfields stretched like judgmental fingers toward the sky, being gay wasn't a phase. It was a sin, a scandal, a stain on the family name. The Harpers were pillars of their evangelical community. His dad, Reverend Thomas Harper, preached fire and brimstone from the pulpit of Grace Fellowship Church every Sunday, while his mom, Lydia, organized bake sales and Bible studies with the precision of a general. They had the perfect facade. 3 kids, a golden retriever named Faith, and a minivan with a Family First bumper sticker. Ethan was the middle child, the invisible one sandwiched between his golden boy brother Caleb and their baby sister Mia, who at 10 still believed in fairy tales. The discovery had come swift and merciless. Ethan thought he'd been careful, hiding the dog-eared copy of The Perks of Being a Wallflower under his bed, whispering his secrets to his reflection in the bathroom mirror late at night. But Caleb had ratted him out, the betrayal slicing deeper than any confession. "I saw the way you looked at that kid from school," Caleb had hissed one afternoon in the garage, tools clanging as their father tinkered with the lawnmower nearby. "You're gonna ruin us all." By evening, the family meeting convened in the living room, Bibles open like weapons on the coffee table. Thomas's face had twisted into something unrecognizable, veins bulging in his neck as he quoted Leviticus like a verdict. Lydia wept silent tears, her hands folded in prayer, but her eyes, those sharp blue eyes, held no mercy, only disgust. "We can't have this poison in our home," she'd whispered, as if Ethan were a tumor to be excised. He'd begged, of course, on his knees, snot-nosed and desperate, promising it was a mistake, that he'd pray harder, change somehow. But Thomas hauled him up by the collar, the man's breath hot with coffee and hypocrisy. "Pray all you want in hell, boy. You're dead to us." And then the door, that final, echoing slam. Ethan stumbled into the night, the backpack digging into his shoulders like a cross he hadn't earned. The streets of Elmwood were empty, sodium lamps buzzing like angry hornets. He walked for hours, the rain turning his clothes to lead, until he collapsed on a bus stop bench outside the edge of town. A payphone loomed nearby, but who would he call? His best friend Jamie had moved away last summer. School counselors were a joke in a place where tough love meant survival of the straightest. Dawn crept in gray and unforgiving, painting the sky the color of ash. A trucker named Roy pulled over in his 18-wheeler, mistaking Ethan for a runaway, which he was, in every sense. "Hop in, kid." "Where to?" Roy's voice was gravelly, kind in a world-weary way. Ethan mumbled, "Anywhere but here," and they rumbled west on I-80, the heartland blurring into a smear of green and gray. Roy dropped him in Omaha, slipping a crumpled 20 into his hand with a gruff, "Don't let the bastards grind you down." Ethan nodded, throat too tight for words, and watched the rig disappear into the haze. Omaha was a limbo of foster homes and group shelters, a carousel of strangers' faces and rules that chafed like ill-fitting clothes. He bounced between placements. A strict Methodist couple who eyed him like he might corrupt their sons. A chaotic house with 5 other teens where fights broke out over the last Pop-Tart. School was a battlefield. Whispers of "fag" trailing him like smoke. Locker room shoves that left bruises blooming like dark flowers on his ribs. But Ethan learned to armor himself, to smile through the hurt, to channel the ache into poetry scribbled on napkins during lunch. He dreamed of escape, of cities where rainbows weren't just God's promise but a flag waved high. By 16, he'd aged out of the system enough to land a gig bussing tables at a diner off Dodge Street, the kind of place where grease clung to your skin and truckers nursed black coffee like lifelines. The tips bought him a threadbare apartment above a laundromat, shared with a rotating cast of roommates, mostly queer kids like him, piecing together lives from thrift store finds. There was Alex, a drag queen with a laugh like champagne bubbles, who taught Ethan how to contour his cheekbones and flirt without flinching. And Javier, an undocumented artist from El Salvador, whose murals on the alley walls whispered stories of borders crossed and loves forbidden. They became his chosen family, stitching the holes left by the Harpers with late-night talks and shared joints on the fire escape. But the ghosts lingered. Birthdays came and went unmarked. Holidays were TV marathons with microwave dinners. Ethan wrote letters he never sent, pages of rage and longing, sealed with wax from a dollar store candle. "Dear Mom and Dad," one began, "do you ever wonder where your son went? Or did you bury him with the rest of your secrets?" He tore them up, the pieces fluttering like confetti at a funeral he couldn't attend. College was a distant mirage. Community college classes squeezed between shifts, loans piling up like unpaid debts to a past he couldn't outrun. It was in the summer of 2015, at a Pride block party in downtown Omaha, that Michael entered his world like a comet streaking the night sky. Ethan was 21, nursing a lukewarm beer on the sidelines, the bass from a DJ booth thrumming through his bones. The air hummed with glitter and possibility. Rainbow flags snapping in the breeze, strangers embracing without shame. Michael stood out immediately, tall and broad-shouldered, with sun-kissed skin and dark curls that begged to be tugged, laughing with a group of activists handing out flyers for a local LGBTQ+ center. He wore a faded Black Lives Matter tee stretched across his chest, jeans ripped at the knees from too many protests, and a smile that could disarm a riot cop. Their eyes met across the crowd, and Ethan felt it like a hook in his gut, that electric pull, the kind that poets chase and fools ignore. Michael sauntered over, extending a hand sticky with cotton candy. "You look like you could use a dance partner," he said, voice warm as summer asphalt. Ethan, heart hammering, took the hand. "Or a stiff drink," he quipped back, surprising himself with the ease of it. They danced under strings of fairy lights, bodies swaying to pulsing synth, the world narrowing to the heat between them. Michael's laugh was infectious, his stories spilling out like rivers. Born in Atlanta to a civil rights organizer mom and a mechanic dad, he'd moved north for law school at Creighton, fighting for tenants' rights and queer visibility in the courts. By midnight, they were tangled on a rooftop bar, sharing secrets over cheap whiskey. I got kicked out at 15, Michael confessed, tracing patterns on Ethan's palm. Mom said I was choosing sin over salvation. Dad just left the room. Ethan nodded, the words unlocking something raw. 14 for me. They called it an intervention. Felt more like an execution. Vulnerability hung between them, fragile as spun glass, but Michael's gaze held steady. Hey, he murmured, thumb brushing Ethan's jaw. We're still here. That's the win. Their first kiss tasted of salt and possibility, under a sky bursting with fireworks. It wasn't fireworks for Ethan, no. It was a quiet unfurling, like a fist finally opening. Michael kissed like he advocated, fierce, unyielding, with a tenderness that disarmed. They tumbled into Ethan's apartment, clothes shedding like old skins, bodies mapping each other in the dim glow of a lava lamp. Michael's hands were calloused from picket lines, his touch reverent, whispering Ethan's name like a prayer. In the afterglow, curled against Michael's chest, Ethan felt seen not as a mistake, but as a miracle. The months blurred into a rhythm of stolen moments and shared dreams. Michael graduated top of his class, landing a job at a nonprofit in Des Moines fighting housing discrimination, and Ethan tagged along, trading his diner gig for a barista spot at a queer-owned cafe. I Was Rolling Hills felt like a fresh start, the air crisp with the scent of turned earth and second chances. They rented a shoebox apartment in the East Village, walls papered with protest posters and shelves groaning under law tomes and poetry collections, Walt Whitman rubbing spines with Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Mornings were coffee and crosswords, Ethan's feet tucked under Michael's thighs as they bantered over the puzzle's clues. 7 letters for unyielding love? Michael teased, winking. Obsession, Ethan shot back, but his heart knew it was deeper. Love settled in like roots pushing through concrete. Quiet, insistent, unbreakable. Michael proposed on a whim during a road trip to the Badlands, pulling over at a scenic overlook where the sun dipped low, painting the rock formations in fire. He knelt in the dust, ring box comically small in his palm, a simple silver band engraved with "Still Here." Ethan's yes was a sob, the kind that shakes loose years of grief. They married in a backyard ceremony the next summer, 2017, under a tent strung with Edison bulbs in Michael's auntie's Des Moines garden. 30 guests. Alex in a sequined gown belting show tunes, Javier sketching caricatures, Ethan's foster siblings toasting with plastic flutes. No Harpers, of course. Ethan had stopped checking the mailbox for olive branches long ago. But the past has a way of festering, like an untreated wound. Whispers started small, a late-night Google search on a whim, Ethan's fingers hovering over the keyboard before typing, Thomas Harper scandal. The results were innocuous at first. Sermons archived on the church site, Lydia's obituary from a car accident in 2012. Wait, obituary? Ethan's stomach plummeted. He'd known nothing, the news walled off by his own resolve to forget. She was 56, gone in a pileup on I-55, the article noting her as beloved wife and mother. No mention of the son she'd cast out. Thomas was alive, remarried to a deaconess, still preaching in Elmwood, his flock none the wiser. Michael found him hunched over the laptop, screen glowing like a ghost. Babe, the word was a lifeline, pulling Ethan back. He spilled it all, the numbness, the rage bubbling up like bile. Michael listened, then closed the computer with a decisive snap. You don't owe them your pain. But if you want closure, He trailed off, eyes fierce. We'll get it together. That night, they made love slow and deliberate, bodies a bulwark against the storm. Michael's whispers were vows renewed. You're my home, Ethan. Always. Life pressed on, sweet and sharp-edged. Ethan enrolled in night classes for creative writing at Drake University. His stories, raw vignettes of lost boys and found families, earning nods from professors who saw the fire beneath his quiet demeanor. Michael climbed the ranks at the nonprofit, arguing cases that chipped away at systemic rot, coming home exhilarated or exhausted, always with takeout and a kiss. They adopted a mutt named Scout from the shelter, a scruffy terrier mix who chewed shoes but slept between their feet like a furry chaperone. Weekends were farmers' markets and hikes in Ledges State Park, hands linked as they crested hills, the world vast and theirs. Yet the hook of the past tugged harder. In 2019, Caleb reached out, a Facebook message, innocuous as a pebble in a pond. Hey, Ethan. Long time. Mom's gone. Like you heard? Dad's not great. Can we talk? Ethan's thumb hovered over delete, but curiosity or masochism won. They met at a neutral Starbucks in Peoria, Ethan driving 3 hours with Michael's pep talk echoing. Boundaries, love. You're not that kid anymore. Caleb looked older than his 32 years, paunchy in a polo shirt, wedding ring glinting under fluorescent lights. Mia tagged along, 8 months pregnant, her belly a dome under a flowy dress. Hugs were awkward, stiff as starched collars. The conversation skirted the edges. Weather, jobs, Caleb in real estate, Mia a teacher, the church's new youth center. Then Caleb cleared his throat. We were wrong. About everything. Dad's sorry. He wants to make amends. Ethan's laugh was bitter, coffee turning to acid in his gut. Amends? After 10 years of radio silence? While Mom died thinking I was damned. Mia teared up, hand on her bump. Family's family, Ethan. For the baby's sake. He walked out then, the bell above the door jangling like accusation. Back in the car, he called Michael, voice cracking. They think a sorry erases it all. Michael's response was steel wrapped in silk. It doesn't. But you do. The betrayal simmered, a low boil. Ethan threw himself into his thesis, a novella about a boy adrift in the Midwest, seeking shores in strangers' arms. Michael buried in a class-action suit against predatory landlords, the kind who evicted queer families on technicalities. Their fights were rare but fierce, Ethan snapping at Michael's late nights, Michael calling out Ethan's walls rebuilt higher. I'm not them, Michael would say, cupping Ethan's face. Let me in, and Ethan would, crumbling into apologies and urgency, their lovemaking a reclamation. Then, the unraveling began. It was Scout who noticed first, sniffing at a manila envelope slipped under their door one October evening in 2020, the return address blank. Inside, grainy photos of Thomas Harper shaking hands with a known slumlord in Chicago, documents yellowed with age, bank statements siphoning church funds into offshore accounts, emails plotting discreet evictions of undesirables. A note, typed and anonymous, your father's not the saint he preaches. Dig deeper. For the boy you were. Ethan's hands shook as he spread the papers on the kitchen table. Michael at his side, brow furrowed. This is fraud, Michael murmured, flipping through ledgers. Embezzlement, maybe racketeering. If it's tied to the church. Ethan's mind reeled, pieces slotting like a cruel puzzle. The Harper's perfect life, funded by tithes meant for the poor, laundered through real estate scams targeting immigrants and the unhoused. Was that why they'd cast him out so easily? To protect their empire from scrutiny? They ruined lives, he whispered, while preaching salvation. Rage coiled hot in his chest, mingling with a grief he'd thought buried. Michael's lawyer instincts kicked in. We verify this. Quietly. Then decide. They spent nights poring over records, Michael pulling strings at work for public filings, Ethan cross-referencing with old memories, the business trips to the city, the whispers about donations vanishing. The deeper they dug, the uglier it got. Families evicted without cause, a widow's home foreclosed to fund Thomas's second wife's jewelry habit. One file hit like a gut punch, a 2007 case, Ethan's own foster stint overlapping with a kid named Rico, bounced from the system after his parents were relocated courtesy of Harper Investments. We exposed them, Ethan said one dawn, as Michael brewed coffee strong enough to wake the dead. Not for revenge. For everyone they hurt. Michael nodded, pulling him close. Partners in crime, well, justice. Their kiss sealed it, fierce and forward-looking. But doubt gnawed. What if Caleb and Mia were complicit? What if facing Thomas reopened wounds that had only just scarred? As winter blanketed Des Moines in ice, the plan coalesced. Michael compiled a dossier, airtight and damning, while Ethan steeled himself for the confrontation. Invites went out via certified mail. A family reunion at the old Elmwood house. Neutral ground laced with reckoning. Thomas's reply was terse. Fine. For closure. Ethan's heart thundered, but Michael's hand in his was anchor enough. We've got this, Michael said, lacing their fingers. You're not alone anymore. Spring 2021 arrived in Elmwood like a hesitant truce. Buds unfurling on maples lining Harper Street, the air thick with the promise of thaw. Ethan and Michael drove in silence from Des Moines. The minivan there's now, a hand-me-down from Michael's aunt, humming over potholed roads. Scout road shotgun, oblivious, tongue-lolling. The dossier sat in Ethan's lap like a sleeping dragon, its weight a talisman against the dread coiling in his gut. Michael glanced over, squeezing his knee. Breathe, love. We're walking in as husbands, not orphans. Ethan managed a nod, but his mind replayed the house in loops. The creak of stairs, the scent of Lydia's pot roast, the echo of that slammed door. The Victorian loomed unchanged, paint peeling like old skin, the porch swaying empty in the breeze. Caleb answered the door, looking harried in khakis, Mia waddling behind with their toddler on her hip, a cherubic girl named Grace, oblivious to the storm brewing. Ethan, Caleb said, voice thick, pulling him into a hug that smelled of aftershave and unease. Michael hung back, hand extended. Michael Harper, well, soon to be, legally. The pause was loaded. Caleb's grip tightened fractionally. The husband. Heard a lot. Mia cooed over Scout, diffusing the tension, but her eyes darted to the envelope under Ethan's arm. Thomas waited in the living room, perched on the edge of the floral sofa like a king on a throne. His new wife Evelyn at his side, a mousy woman with pearls and a Bible clutched like a shield. The room was a time capsule, cross-stitched verses on walls. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Family photos frozen in happier lies. Ethan's throat closed at the sight of his younger self, gap-toothed and grinning beside Caleb at a church picnic. Thomas rose, face a mask of paternal warmth cracked at the edges. "Son," he rumbled, arms open. Ethan sidestepped, the word landing like acid. "Reverend Harper. This is Michael, my husband." The air sucked taut. Evelyn gasped softly, hand to her mouth. Mia busied herself with Grace on the rug. Caleb cleared his throat. "Let's sit. Talk." They arranged in a circle of armchairs. The coffee table a no-man's land. Small talk skittered like pebbles. Grace's first words, "Dada." The church's new steeple fund. But undercurrents pulled strong. Thomas's eyes flicked to the envelope, then away. "We've missed you, Ethan. The family's not whole without." "Save it," Ethan cut in, voice steady as Michael's hand on his back. "I'm here for truth, not tea." He slid the dossier across the table, pages fanning like a deck of judgment. "Start with the church funds. The evictions. The lies you've built this life on." Silence crashed down, heavier than the rain of that long-ago night. Thomas's face drained to chalk, eyes narrowing. "What is this nonsense?" Michael leaned forward, calm as a courtroom. "Bank records, emails, witness statements. Your investments skim tithes from widows and orphans, people who trusted you. Rico Alvarez? His family lost everything in '07. Sound familiar?" Caleb paled, glancing at Mia, who clutched Grace tighter. Evelyn whispered a prayer, but Thomas surged up, chair scraping. "Lies, slander from godless agitators." Ethan's laugh cracked sharp. "Godless? Like the son you threw to the wolves?" The room tilted, memories flooding. The basement where Thomas locked him for prayer sessions. Hours of scripture and slaps disguised as discipline. "You beat the devil out of me, Dad. But it was your devil all along." Thomas's fist clenched, veins like rivers on a map. "I saved you from that perversion." Michael's arm barred the space between them, voice low thunder. "Touch him, and we're done here. Cops on speed dial with this file." Caleb broke first, voice reedy. "Dad, is it true? The money?" Thomas whirled, betrayal etching his features. "You too? After everything?" Mia sobbed quietly, rocking Grace. "We needed the cash for the house, the weddings. It was just business." Ethan's world fractured anew. His brother, his sister complicit in the rot. "You profited off pain, while I starved on the streets." The confrontation splintered into shards. Accusations flying like shrapnel. Thomas roaring defenses laced with scripture. Evelyn fleeing to the kitchen in tears. Michael documented it all on his phone, voice recorder whirring discreetly. Ethan stood firm, words a torrent long dammed. "You disowned me for loving a man, but you'd steal from the poor? Hypocrites in the highest." Thomas lunged then, not at Ethan but the table, scattering papers in a whirlwind of denial. "Get out, all of you, devils in disguise." They retreated to the porch, air thick with ozone from an approaching storm. Caleb followed, face ashen. "Ethan, wait. I didn't know the half of it. Mia. We were desperate." Desperation, the Harper family creed. Ethan paused, rain spitting from gathering clouds. Desperation doesn't excuse destruction. But blood. He trailed off, the word bitter. Michael squeezed his shoulder. "Choice, not chain. We'll send it to the DA. Clean slate for everyone else." Caleb nodded, defeated. Tell Grace about her uncle someday? Ethan's yes was soft, a bridge half-built. The drive back was catharsis wept out in miles. Ethan curled against Michael's side at stoplights, Scout's head in his lap. I thought it'd feel better, he murmured. Michael kissed his temple. It will. Healing's not a sprint. That night in their Des Moines bed, they clung fierce, bodies a testament to survival, slow rhythms building to release, whispers of forever amid the thunder. But closure is a mirage. Weeks later, the fallout rippled. Thomas resigned amid health concerns, the church launching an audit that unearthed more skeletons, affairs, addictions, a trail of broken lives. Caleb called sporadically, voice laced with regret. Mia sent baby photos, tentative olive branches. Ethan kept distance, tending his own garden, graduating with an MFA, his novella published to quiet acclaim, stories of queer resilience blooming on pages. Michael's caseload swelled with referrals from the scandal, his passion a beacon. They bought a fixer-upper in the suburbs, painting walls sage green, planting tulips that nodded in the breeze. Love deepened in the domestic. Michael's burnt pancakes on Sundays, Ethan's lullabies to Scout, lazy Sundays tangled in sheets. Yet shadows lingered, nightmares of locked doors, phantom slaps. Michael held him through them, murmuring, "You're safe. We're safe." In the hush of autumn 2022, another envelope arrived, not anonymous, but from a PI Michael had quietly hired. Inside, Lydia's journals, salvaged from estate sale detritus. Pages yellowed, ink faded, but the words seared. Thomas's deals. I knew, God forgive me. The boy, our boy, deserves better than this house of cards. Tears blurred the script. She'd loved him, in her fractured way, guilt gnawing till the end. Ethan folded the pages, tucking them into his nightstand. Forgiveness? Not yet. Understanding? A start. Their anniversary fell on a crisp October eve, marked with lobster rolls at a waterfront spot in Davenport, the Mississippi glittering under twilight. Michael raised his glass. To us, against the odds. Ethan clinked, heart full. To evidence, he added wryly, and the husbands who carry it. Laughter bubbled, light as the river's flow. But fate, that capricious editor, had one more twist cued. Winter 2023 clamped Des Moines in its iron grip, snowdrifts piling like unspoken resentments against their windows. Ethan's novella hit a second printing, readings in indie bookstores drawing crowds of wide-eyed queer youth who clutched signed copies like talismans. Your words saved me, one teen whispered after a Cedar Rapids event. I shiny. Ethan hugged him, throat tight, echoes of his 14-year-old self in that boy's tremble. Michael beamed from the back row, pride radiating like heathfire. Their life was a mosaic pieced from shards. Therapy sessions unpacking trauma, date nights at dive bars with karaoke duets, Scouts wagging tail a metronome to their days. Yet the Harper specter loomed, a fog that seeped through cracks. Thomas's trial loomed on the horizon, federal charges of wire fraud and money laundering, the DA's office building a case brick by damning brick. Reporters sniffed around, one even doorstepping their home with a microphone thrust like a spear. Mr. Harper, any comment on your father's alleged crimes? Ethan shut the door, heart jackhammering, Michael pulling him into a hug that smelled of sandalwood and strength. They're vultures, Michael growled. But truth's the sunlight, they'll scatter. Caleb's calls grew urgent, laced with panic. Dad's cracking, talking suicide in his sleep. Evelyn left him. The church is picketing our house. Mia's texts pleaded. Grace asks about Uncle Ethan. Please. Guilt wormed in blood-stubborn pull. Ethan wrestled it in journals, pages filling with pros and cons. Pros, Grace's laugh. Cons, the slap that still stings. Michael read them over coffee, brow furrowed. You're not obligated. But if you go, I'm there. Decision crystallized one blizzard night. Wind howling like banshees. A visit, supervised, for the niece he'd never held. Elmwood was a ghost town under ice. Grace Fellowship shuttered with plywood over stained glass. The Harper house sagged. Christmas lights tangled and dark. Thomas answered shirtless. Bottle in hand, whiskey, not communion wine, face haggard. The Reverend's fire guttered to embers. You came, he slurred, stepping aside. Inside reeked of neglect, take-out boxes, dust motes dancing in weak light. Caleb hovered in the kitchen, Mia upstairs with Grace. No Evelyn, no pretense. They sat at the scarred oak table, Michael's presence a silent sentinel. Thomas poured amber into mismatched glasses. To family, he toasted, hollow. Ethan ignored his voice even. To answers. Why'd you do it, Dad? The money, the lies. What happened to the man who taught Sunday school? Thomas's laugh rasped like sandpaper. Power, son. The flock gives, but it don't fill the hole. Your mother. She saw it first. Wanted out. That crash? No accident. The words landed like a bomb. Shockwaves rippling. Lydia murdered? For knowing too much? Michael's eyes sharpened. Lawyer mode engaged. Proof. Thomas shrugged. Swigging deep. In the attic. Boxes she hid. But it don't matter. God's judging me harsher than any court. Caleb burst in then. Face thunderous. Don't drag Mom into this. But his denial cracked. Eyes darting guilty knowledge. Ethan rose. Storm brewing. You all knew. And let me rot to keep the secret. Thomas lunged across the table, grabbing Ethan's wrist. Not violent, but desperate. I loved you, boy. In my way. Feared losing the light. The touch burned. Old wounds weeping. Ethan wrenched free. Michael's hand steadying. Your light was a lie. Upstairs. Grace was a sunbeam. Toddler curls framing cherub cheeks. Clapping at Scout's tricks. Mia watched warily as Ethan knelt, offering a stuffed bear from their bag. Uncle Eth, she lisped, hugging fierce. In that moment, purity pierced the poison, love untainted. But descending the stairs, resolve hardened, no more half measures. We're testifying, Ethan told Caleb flatly. All of it. For her future. Caleb nodded. Broken. Do it. End this. Back home. The revelation gnawed. Michael hired a forensic accountant pro bono. Digging into Lydia's accident. Brake lines tampered. Witness statements buried. Evidence mounted. Thomas's prints on the tool from the garage. A mechanic's payoff logged in the ledgers. Murder. To silence the conscience that threatened empire. Ethan paced nights. Rage a live wire. He killed her. For money. Michael pulled him down. Grounding. We'll prove it. But don't let it consume you. Their intimacy that week was urgent. A reclaiming. Michael's mouth mapping scars. Ethan's nails raking backs. Cries muffled in pillows as release chased demons. Spring brought indictments. Fraud escalated to conspiracy. Manslaughter pinned on Thomas. The media frenzy peaked. Preachers fall. From pulpit to prison? Splashed across Heartland headlines. Caleb cooperated. Flipping for leniency. Mia entered witness protection with grace. A new life in Wisconsin. Ethan and Michael testified in June. Des Moines Federal Courthouse, a fortress of marble and justice. On the stand, Ethan faced his father across the room. Thomas in orange. Shackled. Eyes hollow. "He disowned me at 14, Ethan said, voice carrying clear, to protect crimes that destroyed families like mine. But love, that's what saved me." Michael squeezed his hand under the table. Unspoken us. The verdict came swift. Guilty on all counts. Life without parole. Thomas's final words to Ethan. Through glass at visitation. "Forgive me," Ethan stared. The boy he'd been warring with the man he'd become. "Maybe in heaven. That. Here, work on it." He walked out. Michael's arm around his waist. Sunlight slanting gold on the steps. Summer healed in increments. They honeymooned late. A cabin in the Boundary Waters. Canoeing Mirror Lakes at dawn. Loons calling like absolution. Nights by firelight. Stories swapped. Michael's Atlanta youth dodging Confederate flags. Ethan's Omaha hustles. Lovemaking under stars. Slow and sacred. Bodies attuned like instruments. "You're my plot twist," Ethan murmured once, tracing Michael's jaw. "The hero I didn't know I needed," Michael chuckled, nipping his ear. "And you're the heart." Fall saw Ethan's second book launch, a memoir, Disowned Dawn, raw and redemptive. Readings packed houses, queer centers hosting panels on resilience. One night in Chicago, post-event, a fan approached Rico Alvarez, now a community organizer, broad grin splitting his face. "Your words? They gave me mine back." Hugs exchanged. Numbers swapped. Networks woven from shared survival. But peace is fragile china. In November, a letter arrived postmarked Elmwood, and signed but in Thomas's hand, the attic. Last box. For Lydia. Burn it or bury it. Curiosity overrode caution. They drove under cover of night. House dark and derelict. Caleb's key procured via text. The attic smelled of mothballs and mildew, beams groaning like confessions. The box, Lydia's, labeled memories in her script. Inside, letters to Ethan, unsent, pages thick with love's apology. "My boy, I failed you." The darkness in him swallowed us. "But light, it's yours. Shine." Photos too, Ethan as infant, cradled tender, the family before fractures. Tears came hot, Michael holding as sobs racked. "She saw you," he whispered. "Always." They burned the rest, evidence of deeper sins, perhaps, but kept the letters, a balm for the scar. Winter waned, their life a quiet symphony. Michael's promotion to director meant more travel, but calls bridged gaps. "Miss your laugh, babe." Ethan's writing group thrived, words flowing freer. Scout aged gracefully, gray muzzle wise. Yet in the hush before spring, a cough started. Michael's, dry and persistent, dismissed as allergies. Doctor visits blurred. Scans, biopsies, the word lymphoma dropping like a guillotine. Stage 3. Aggressive. Treatments loomed. Chemo. Radiation. The works. Ethan's world tilted. The man who'd carried his evidence now frail in hospital gowns. "We'll fight," Michael rasped, gripping Ethan's hand. Together, but fear whispered, "Not again." Not him. Spring 2024 bloomed defiant. Tulips thrusting through Des Moines soil, a metaphor Michael latched onto during infusions, for drip beeping like a metronome to his resolve. "See? Life pushes back." Ethan nodded, forcing smiles as he juggled roles. Caregiver, writer, pillar. Their home became a war room. Fridge stocked with ginger chews and bone broth. Calendar inked with appointments and affirmations. Friends rallied. Alex flying in for queer care packages of essential oils and trashy novels. Javier painting murals of resilient oaks on the bedroom walls. Caleb even wired money, anonymous but appreciated, for the fight. Chemo hit like a freight train. Michael's curls shedding in clumps, gathered in a jar like sacred relics. Nausea bending him double. Ethan's arms the only anchor. Nights were vigils. Ethan reading Whitman aloud. I sing the body electric. Michael's head in his lap. Breaths shallow but steady. Promise me, Michael murmured once. Ice fever bright. No pity party if. Ethan silenced him with a kiss. Fierce. Shut up. We're both walking out. Lovemaking adapted, gentle explorations. Mouths and hands charting new intimacies. Pleasure a rebellion against pain. The cancer fought dirty, but so did they. Clinical trials in Iowa City. Experimental drugs turning Michael's veins to rivers of fire. Platelets dipped. Fever spiked. 1 ER dash at 3 a.m. Ethan white-knuckling the wheel, praying to a god he'd long doubted. Don't take him, he bargained into the dash cam. He's the good one. Remission flickered on scans. 30% shrinkage. Doctors nodding cautious hope. Celebrations were small. Ice cream on the porch. Scout's tail thumping approval. Ethan's memoir climb charts. Royalties funding a trust for queer youth housing. Michael's idea. Legacy in bricks. Build what we dreamed, he said, signing checks from his recliner. Readings became fundraisers. Ethan channeling fear into fire. Love isn't absence of storm. It's dancing in it. Fans sent cards. One from Mia. Grace drew this for Uncle Mike. Warriors. The crayon stick figures, 2 men with swords. Dog at heels, hung on the fridge. Talisman. Summer sweltered. Treatments tapering. Michael gained weight. Curls sprouting silver shot. They road-tripped to the Badlands. The proposal overlook a pilgrimage. Still here, Michael echoed their vow. Ring glinting. Ethan laughed through tears. Stubborn as ever. Picnics amid prairies. Hands linked. The land vast as forgiveness. Back home. Normalcy crept. Barbecues with the writing group. Michael's return to work part-time. Advocating from a wheelchair he dubbed throne. But autumn whispered warnings. A cough returning. Sharper. Scans confirmed. Mets to the lungs. Stage 4. The room spun. Doctor's words mush. Palliative. Hospice. Time measured in months. Michael took it stoic. Planning like a campaign. No hospital bed. Home. With you. Ethan shattered privately. Sobs in the shower. Fists to tile, then rose armored. Your call. General. Hospice woven gently. Nurses with kind eyes. morphine drips easing the edge. Their bed became island bodies spooned, Michael's back to Ethan's chest, heartbeats sinking. Stories filled hours, childhoods swapped, futures sketched in hypotheticals. "If I go first," Michael said one dusk, "scatter me in the Mississippi. Let the current carry." Ethan traced his knuckles. "Only if I go second." Together, kisses lingered, soft as farewells, intimacy in glances, in the way Michael's fingers found Ethan's always. Caleb visited once, awkward in the doorway, bearing pie from Mia. "Heard about Mike," they talked haltingly. Grace's kindergarten tales, Thomas wasting in prison, letters of repentance ignored. "You're stronger than us," Caleb admitted. Ethan shrugged. Had to be. A hug. Brief but real blood thawing. Winter solstice brought the turn. Michael's breaths labored, pain a constant thief. Ethan sang carols off-key, decked the tree with rainbow ornaments. Christmas Eve, snow blanketing silent. Michael rallied for eggnog and It's a Wonderful Life, George Bailey's redemption mirroring their own. "We got our angel," Michael wheezed, thumb stroking Ethan's cheek. Wings and all, he slipped away at dawn Christmas morning. 2024. Peaceful. Hand in Ethan's. Last words a grin. "See you on the other side. Love." The room filled with light. Snow-globed hush. Ethan held on till the nurse gently pried. Then shattered. Wails echoing empty halls. Scout whining at his feet. Friends came. A cocoon. Alex brewing tea. Javier sketching Michael's portrait from memory. Funeral was queer as hell. Rainbow casket. Playlist of show tunes and soul. Eulogies fierce with love. Ethan spoke last. Voice cracking. He walked in with evidence, not of crimes, but of grace. Proved a heart could mend what families break. Ashes scattered in the Mississippi at sunset. Currents claiming their vow. Grace toddled up, clutching a daisy. "For Uncle Mike." Ethan knelt, planting it in memory's soil. Grief was ocean, waves crashing, then ebbing to vast quiet. Ethan soldiered, writing Michael's story into a third book, Evidence of Us, proceeds to cancer funds. The trust broke ground. A Des Moines shelter named Harper Haven. First residents moving in spring 2025. Therapy unpacked layers. Friends filled voids. Caleb's visits steadied. A nephew's laughter bomb. One November Eve, 2025. Anniversary shadowed. Ethan sat porchside. Scout gray and loyal at his feet. Stars wheeled overhead. Crisp air nipping. Envelope waited on the mat. Postmark prison Thomas. Frail hand scrawled. "Son, I've confessed all. Lydia's light in you. Forgive." Ethan read by lantern. Tears tracing old paths. No reply penned. But a weight lifted, not absolution, but release. He raised a glass to the night, to husbands, to crimes uncovered, to lives reclaimed. The wind carried it riverward, where Michael waited, still here. In the end, the boy disowned at 14 became the man who forgave, not for them, but for himself. And in that American heartland, under endless sky, love proved the truest evidence, enduring, unyielding, home.